here. And like magic, it's done. But that's not the tricky part. You might be shocked to hear this, but it's another rainy day. This is just like build an ark, Noah's Ark day. Anyway, and that of course makes me glad I leapfrogged and got all that painting done during that very short sunny period we had that was paintable, because if it wasn't, we would start to fall behind on this project pretty quickly. Anyway, today's a day. I obviously cannot be doing anything outside. So I'm going to try to plan on working on that front wheel, maybe getting a tire installed, the valve, the discs, get that all set for reinstallation. That'll be a big step in the right direction for that project. But in the meantime, the most important part of the beginning of every day is to oogle the bikes and come out here and hug and kiss them, and as Dallas says, pet their noses. I think that's very cute. Anyway, I do this every morning. I know it's like an addiction. But anyway, floats my boat, gets me ready to work in a shop for this day. And it is really wonderful that we took advantage of that one day. There was one day in the middle of that no rain period to get a nice ride on the GS. And so what I've been doing every morning is sitting on the lazy boy and watching, reliving that ride while I have my coffee. Even more reason to watch windy videos. But no matter what the weather is, no matter how warm the coffee is, no matter how much I have to feed the birds, no matter what's going on with the restorations, every day I just try to make a little bit different. That's one of my goals in life. Now, talk about oogling. I come out here and whenever I'm depressed or I feel like I'm not in the best mood, I come out here and I just rub my hand on that wheel and I say, was that ever worth it? Hand buffed wheels. Anytime you spend on these hand buffed wheels, time well spent. You just couldn't make this up. Look at, there's a squirrel over there. Where the hell's he going? Scared the hell out of me. Anyway, the rain. Maybe we should be building an ark instead of working on motorcycles. More rain, but we'll take advantage and use the day well. It's time to get this day started. Get this show on the road. So how much fun do you think these birds are having? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So we're going to pick up this day from where we left off yesterday. We're a beautiful wheel. Oh my God, is this wheel nice. If only you could see this in real life. Now it's ready to put the valve stem, the tire. I guess we're pretty much ready to finish this puppy off, put the disc back on. This on a day that's raining as bad as it is now, and predicted even more days of rain. Or maybe we'll get this started right now. So while I'm getting ready to do this, some work on a wheel, I got the tire up by a heating vent. That'll warm it up a little bit anyway. It's around 65 degrees in the shop, but the warmer we can make the tire, the better. If it was a sunny day, I could put it out in the sun. First thing I want to do is wear this, the tire valve, the Curvy Girl, is going to be sitting on this newly painted surface. I would like it to be perfectly smooth and not have any orange peel or anything, even though this is not where it seals. It's really just an appearance thing. But we do want to try to take care of every little detail possible. Okay, now let's see how that's going to be. I can get some compound. That's ready to polish now. Now take a little 8065, again, another little detail. But then everything on this job is little details. I want this to be smooth. It's really just for appearance. That Curvy Girl seals on the edges. It doesn't seal on this top surface. Now when putting in these Curvy Girl, I like to, there's a little rubber gasket of course. I like to ensure that we don't tear it up on the way in. So I've made sure I don't have a big paint buildup on this edge. Make sure I don't have a razor blade edge. And it's a very, I want to be very careful getting that to sit and seal in. And these, if you over tighten them, it's a real problem. You can strip them. Never use Loctite. Number 2. I want this facing. the side of the motorcycle, so when it's on a kickstand, this is very easy because I do check the tire pressure every time I ride the bike, and this just makes it so much easier, and you don't get lazy about doing it. Now this is just a spare wrench that I have that I've had to thin, because to get in that little recessed area, unless you can get a thin wall socket, I didn't have one, I had to just grind the edge of that off. And then I leave that with the tire change and stuff. Now I want this, and this gets a little tricky, I want this to tighten up relatively smoothly. I don't want this to be moving back and forth. That's the point at which I don't want to have it anymore tight. Okay, it looks like we got it. Now I have all the Schrader valve tools here for putting the valve back together. Once this is together, now there's a little bit of a sequencing thing that I have to take care of here. I don't want to over tighten that either. I'll put this on for now just so I don't lose it. I lose things, that's the problem. Okay, so I always keep all my Schrader valve tools and bolts and whatever in one bag. There we go, that's done with that. That valve is in there, it's nice and tight, but not overly tight. And even if it were to move just a little bit, I don't think that would be the end of the world. Usually the Curvy Girl has a really good seal. Now, shame on me that I let paint drip over the label, but anyway, this is Krylon, and it's the dreaded thing of my life, flat black, and it's water-based. So what I'm going to be able to do is get a long brush, a couple of different brushes, and get in there, and I'm not sure you can see how, and I'm not sure you even see it, but I know flat black tends to make things disappear. I'd like to not be able to see that, and I need to do that. See, I need to do this in steps. Before I put the discs on, it'll be a lot easier to get in there. So by doing that now, I'll just save some time down the road. Now, why not just use regular automotive paint? Well, here's the thing. If I were to be using an automotive paint right now, and I drips, and some almost always drips out onto the wheel when you do this. I've done the FCR wheels, I've done the R1 wheels, so I know what the pitfalls are here. When that happens, you can't wipe it right off. With water-based paint, you can wipe it right off. So that's the advantage. And by stirring it up real good, hopefully I'll get this to cover in one coat. Now most of this is really not that easy to get to. Kind of challenging, in fact, to get down in there, but I know when I've done the other wheels, at the end, I've said, wow, nice little detail. And it's something you don't really notice right away. And then all of a sudden one day you notice it and you say, ooh, that is pretty nice. But it's important to do this before I put the discs back on. So what I did last night, I tried to make a little priority list of I want to do this before this before that. And this is the kind of thing that, oh yeah, that would be a lot easier to do without the discs on. So now you probably could do it. I don't know why I'm worrying about it. But anyway, this is the kind of thing that I hope just will add one nice little detail to the bike, and that the few people that do get to see it and appreciate it, well, good for them. And that will be taken into account on your judgment day. So I think that's just one more little detail that when the discs are on, it'll be less obvious, and that paint will dry flat. Okay, so we're ready to mount up the tire. It's been sitting by a heating vent, but it's really not going to be hot like when you put it out in the sun. It's probably just a few degrees hotter than ambient, but that's about it. So the wheel is ready to mount the tire, and I try to always use a method that's not going to scratch the rims. This is the method I've shown many times on the video, and it usually works pretty well, except if the tire is really cold. So now this is always a thing of contention. Michelin tires, these are Power Pilot tires, do not have a dot as such, like the Pirellis and other brands where the dot would line up with the tire valve. So I have gotten information in the past from Rich Peabody that's proved to be pretty good information because it worked. That what I should do, and he was in the tire balancing business, I don't know, for a long time anyway. I think he even sold the machines. So I want to find the joint, and the joint in the belt. Let me just make sure I don't. And usually you can feel it. You can actually see it. It's right here. Okay, so here's the joint. That means where the belt, when they make the tire, the belt over, the overlap is right there. So I want to flip this over. I got to look for the rotation now. Let's make sure I want the rotation going that way, so it's the other side. And let's make sure we have it right. We would be, double check it right here. You can actually see it in this tire. You don't even have to feel it. It would be right here is where we want to have the tire valve. Just mark it with an ink marker. I want to make sure I'm going to drop this on, that I have the rotation right, because I'm going to be putting the Gorilla Tape on here. Let's just make sure we have the rotation right. Okay, and the next step is, now at this point I would want to get the tire as warm as I possibly could. A lot of people say put a hairdryer inside and do this and do that, and yeah, but it doesn't matter how you do it. The best way of all is just put it out in the bright sun. So I'm using Gorilla Tape. Gorilla Tape is not duct tape. Duct tape is usually not strong enough. I've also tried several times to do this with various types of zip ties and hose clamps, but the easiest way, for me anyway, and I've done it a lot of times, there's probably 20 or 25 videos of just doing tire changing out on YouTube. There is a very predictable, simple way that I've developed. I've cut an extra piece of duct tape in case I cut one too short. So I'll take the shortest one I cut first. I want the shortest one to be right where the tire valve is. Now I don't want the tape going down into where it's going to be a problem. I want to have it just outside of that. And I want to press it down real good. This is really a predictable thing. This is going to be what holds the tire. Now I got to bring this around here. This one may be too short, in fact. But if it is, that's why I cut an extra one. Now, I've got to press this down and get that up. And there it is. Now, once you can do that to 1, now I want to go at 12 o'clock. And I want to do exactly the same thing. That tape, by the way, was a little bit on the short side, so I'll take the long one. I don't want to go out in there. I want to make sure I've got this good and tight. I can't work with gloves because the gloves grab the Gorilla Tape, and I need to put it on here. And when the tire is hot, you can do this with one hand. I can't do it with one hand now because this tire is not really warm enough. But anyway, we'll put it to the test. Okay, so we want to have 4. One basically at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And there's no, I'm doing this in real time, of course. Now, a lot of times when you do this with some of the real big rear tires, it breaks the tape. And then you have, yeah, it's annoying, you got to do it over again. But usually a front tire, these are pretty easy to go on, even when they're not super hot. This is ambient temperature now. It's not really, I don't think it's any warmer than ambient. But if this doesn't go on the way we expect, then we go to plan B. We'll have to get our hair dryers or something and heat it. So now we have the whole thing. The next thing is I want to reinforce in my mind exactly where that, I put a red dot on here, okay. It's right here. In fact, I'm going to make this even more so I don't lose track of it. Now it also means that's the direction I want the tire to go in. So I have 2 things here. Now, this is the part that's always contentious. That you know, I ought to use Dawn, and just to prove my point. I have the other stuff, of course. And you really only have to do the top half, but I'll do it all anyway. And I wanted to do this in real time. I don't know why I did. I think Bob Navola got me that jello-y stuff that they use, but I didn't find it worked a lot better than Dawn. But the reality is, I saw them on YouTube. You know, like professional racer kind of guys that are doing this many times a day. And they're using Windex, so I guess it's just something to get it slippery. And this is the side that's got to be more slippery than the other side. And what I'll do is I'll go do the rim, and we'll see if it's our lucky day. I know which way this has to go, and it's this edge here. It's really only the top that this will have to be, but the other side it won't even matter. Get that on there. The whole idea of this whole thing is that we don't have any metal tools touching our painted rim. So at this point, I want my hand to be really nice and dry. Sometimes you really have to force it, and it's usually depending on how hot the tire is. And this is not a hot tire, so la 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 la. Just reinforce that we have it going the right way. That is the right way. That's the right way. Okay, and we got the tire valve down here. And like magic, it's done. But that's not the tricky part. So this is a little bit of the tricky part right now. I want to make sure that stays in alignment. I don't want any of the extra soap on there. It's just Dawn anyway, but it's just... Now, no metal tools have touched the wheel. And what we've done in the past is, just to make sure that we don't scratch these rims, is we've cut them off. So basically I want to look at, make sure everything is exactly the way I want it. See, this could move as I'm doing this. So let me just double check down here. Yes, this is exactly where the tire bead should be. So it'll be the one by the tire bead I'm going to take off first. And this is the tricky part, is you've got to get this piece of duct tape to come out in one piece. And as it pops, if you're lucky, you can reach in here. Let's just see if it is our lucky day, and I'm going to show this, because I've developed this little do's and don'ts over many, many years of doing this. And of course, a lot of my friends have tire irons, including Luciano, so I don't really have to do this. But if you have these painted rims, I don't know what we call it, I got that in alignment now, and I've got to do that now 4 times, and that'll be off. And it's a very predictable thing to do. You don't, and there was at least once I can remember, and it was my own fault, leaving a little piece of duct tape around the edge, and it didn't seal, and I had to just take the air out of the tire and break the bead and everything. But when that's done 4 times, we're ready to put air on the tire. So usually this will just pre-seat the bead. Then the trick is fire up that noisy compressor. I like to get 50 pounds of air in the tire at least, so it seats the bead. And if it pops on the first shot, if it doesn't, we'll come back and do it over again. Actually, this went about as good as you could expect, but there's not a scratch anywhere. Okay, it's just time to see that magic sound of the tire popping. We'll see if it's our lucky day. Come on, baby. You can do it. Now, I usually put 50 pounds in. Just doing it roughly on the gauge. If I were going to ride the bike, I'd want to let it sit overnight, make sure it doesn't have a slow leak. It's got 50 pounds. Now, I don't have to worry about the compressor kicking on now. Now, the easy part. I want to make sure, and this is maybe a little overkill, but no matter what, I want to see if I see any air bubbles along the bead. And I also will check both sides with my finger to make sure there's a little ridge I can feel there, and I can feel that that tire has seated just about perfectly. Now, if you're going to have a real radical leak, you'll see it right away, believe me. No, that looks good. I want to do around the valve. And usually you'll see it, again, right away. That looks pretty good. So maybe, baby, it is our lucky day, but you never know, because sometimes it's not your lucky day. And this Windex, I'll just wipe everything off when I'm done with a clean microfiber. and we'll be ready to put the discs on. Now checking that bead, and a lot of times if it doesn't seat right, just let the air out of the tire and do it over again. Looking for any, usually you see it right away. See, I hate to ever say this, but it looks like maybe we lucked out on this tire. But actually, changing tires is not a big deal. It's if you don't care if you scratch your rim, just go to the dealer and pay. But I don't know about that. I like having no scratches on my rims, and I like doing it myself. So with everything, it's got 50 psi in it, and Karen just yelled down to me that she would like to make an errand trip, which is good. We're at a good point to take a break. That's always convenient if that works out. The tire is mounted. I can get the discs on, check the balance. And that balance thing, by the way, I've heard a lot of misinformation that this is true and that's true, and even Glenn was over here one day and he made a bunch of phone calls to people that run bike dealerships, and we could not resolve where the dot is. And then the bottom line was, I asked somebody that sold Michelin tires that should know, and they said Michelin tires balance, they're close enough they don't even put a dot on them. I found that to be true about half of the time, that they don't need a balancing dot. Because a lot of times, don't forget, the wheel is out of balance. So even the best tire in the world, that's not true. So having said that, it's still pouring rain. We'll go do our errands and come back and take care of the discs. Well, stop one today on our wonderful errand day is my favorite place, Home Depot. Here's what you need every time you come to Home Depot: an extra gallon of Simple Green. What could possibly be more fun while you're taking a break from working on your wheel? Good old Home Depot. This is something when you go shopping you got to make sure you get. Pirate's Booty. That is great stuff. And plenty of cheese. Hey, where are the vegetables? Oh, we got to get back to work. We need a recharge. We need some nitromethane. Now, back from shopping, and shopping, of course, is always a thrill, but I'm curious, and I don't know, and I'm always honest about stuff I don't know about. I don't know what the purpose of these, actually what function they serve, whether they're insulating. They look like they're some kind of phenolic material that they insulate. Again, I'm not sure. But they go underneath the disc, between the disc. They're both the same. This is a symmetrical wheel, so I'm just trying to picture if there's any logic I'm missing here. So with these little guys in place and the disc that we've cleaned up, everything snaps right in place beautifully. And I want to make sure I got this level, even the polished screws. And of course I'll put them in a star pattern. Torque them down with my good quality Craftsman torque wrench. But again, I did test the wrench that I got from Harbor Freight, and it was pretty accurate. I was amazed. Anyway, always some cute little information here now. Oh, you see, I got to take the bolt out. You see, this is what happens. Now, most people, if they were making a video like this, I didn't do this on purpose, by the way. Most people would just edit that out of the video. I like to leave the mistakes in, because that's what happens. I want to put the blue Loctite on the bolts. That's what happens in the real world. And when you go in to do a restoration and you think, oh no, Jay Leno never makes that mistake or anything. Well, that's not always true. Sometimes they make more mistakes than you think. Anyway, when you don't do something every day of the week, it's a problem. And for sure, I will not be using red Loctite on this because, number one, I do check things from time to time. And it's especially important, what I do is when I wipe the bike off at the end of a ride or desalt it or whatever, I would always look around for bolts that looks like they're walking their way out. And every once in a while I find one, and then I just You know, tighten it up, put a little more blue Loctite on it, but it just makes taking it apart in the future. If the day comes we want to take this apart now, who knows? You never know, from damage repair or modifications or whatever. So anyway, this is from this point on, we're just going to tighten up the screws and then go through our tightening routine. Well, all that's left is just do the other side and then balance the wheel. Pretty easy peasy. It's so nice, to me, it's so nice working with nice clean stuff, not with filthy dirty parts that are all rusty and dirty and what a mess. Anyway, this goes together relatively straightforward. I want to make sure I do a real accurate torquing job, and once this is done, we're ready to, we have the forks done, we have the wheel done now, one wheel anyway, and unfortunately the weather has kind of been making us go to leapfrogging that I really am not happy about, but I wanted to put the one more coat of gold on the back wheel. I'm not going to do that until the weather perks up, but we do have other stuff to do. And of course the tank, the biggie, the tank. And there's one final thing to do here. This has been sitting a few hours, so I just want to do my pressure check. Perfect, didn't lose a pound. So, not that we're going to ride the bike this afternoon, but if this had gone down 10 pounds in 2 hours, I'd be thinking, I better refix it. I think we're in great shape. I think that, well, we got to balance it yet, but that tire install was about as easy as it's ever been. And the tire wasn't even that warm. So I want to see just how bad, if any, the tire is out of balance. Boy, whatever it is, it's a very small amount. So what I'll do is just let it rotate till it finds its heaviest spot will be at the bottom, and then we'll try to start attaching weights exactly opposite until it balances back and forth this way, and then I guess that's going to mean we're close enough to actually this looks pretty close right now. I don't know who to believe, these Michelin people or I don't know, whoever. Let's see. All right, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. Just let it come to a dead stop, and we're all set. Now, if you look, it's exactly opposite the valve, and on a stock bike, that would be a steel valve, which we replaced with the Curvy Girl aluminum. Well, now that weight needs to go right where the valve is. I'm not sure that's convenient, but there's so little. You know what? It's so little that I don't even think it's worth doing this. Because we are really close with this wheel. I'm really surprised how close that was. Now I'm looking through the weights that I have, the stick-on weights, an old bag of them in fact. And I just thought, well, you know, let's see. What I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna even put these weights on now. I think it's gonna be very little weight it takes to balance this. I don't even want to put the stickiness on. But it'll be, I know what'll happen, it'll be right by the valve, if anything. Let's see if that does it. Now what I'm doing is I'm making a seesaw this way. Okay, this still needs more weight, you can see that. Let's see if it does it both ways. No, not really. Yeah, it needs more weight. Okay, so we'll take 3. This is always the thing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to record the weight in my logbook here and not put it on until I actually ride the bike. to see if this is such a little amount. This is 15. Let's see if it needs, when it needs 30 or more, then you've got to hammer them on. Yeah, it looks like it's going to need more. Maybe I'm wrong. Yep. Okay, so this is the case. Pretty easy to do this since we have all these weights. But I will keep track of it. Let's see how much it's going to need. And it's going to need it right by the valve. So that's kind of easy to remember. One more. Yeah, one more. After going back and forth about 50 times, we finally decided exactly how much weight and exactly where it's going to go. It needs to go right by the valve. So I will make note of that. Yeah, we've got it. No matter what position I put the tire in, it doesn't fall down. That's usually a good way to check it. So after all that, this 30-gram weight right by the tire valve balances it perfectly. So what I'm going to do is run this over to the buff and we'll clean it up a little bit. I just don't want to have an old rusty thing on there. And that should bring us into a really good balance. Another small little detail, just one little detail after another, even that's buffed out. Now as I'm putting this permanent weight on, it's real handy, and a lot of people have trouble figuring out how to get a hammer in there or a punch or anything. This is the way I've done it, is right through the brake hub. And that weight is on there permanently. And that wheel is very close to being in perfect balance right now. Real close. I don't think we have to worry about that too much. Now, it really wasn't that long ago, and this wheel was just a dream that I had. That wheel is ready to put back on a motorcycle now. And after all, it seems like all of the work that we did is all behind me now. I don't think of that. I think of what's ahead of me. And that's part of any of these long-term projects that you just have to accept. And we've got a really nicely balanced, cleaned up brake. I got to clean the calipers up, do a thorough job on the calipers before we reassemble this. But anyway, I hope there were a few good tips. One of them is putting those wheel weights on. That can stump you. That can be a problem. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Christmas. And it's 1,771 pieces.
And you built them all by yourself, right? Well, these less pieces now. You did it all by yourself, right? Nobody helped you? Wow, he looks pretty complicated.
Had a little bit of help.
Oh. Does his head move and everything? Wow.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, that was good.
That one.
Now you need this.
What's that?
All cows eat grass. Figure it out. Alright, so.